Maimane joins us to discuss these concerns all the way from Cape Town. Very good to have you with us this morning. Tell us more about what you're worried about.
Good morning, and good morning to all fellow South Africans. It was clear from the presentation of the Minister that the department is not ready. The presentation looked incredibly rushed. They relied heavily on consultation and, frankly, lack of a proper plan of delivery. My deep concern is that schools in this country are schools upon which we'll have crowded classrooms, we'll have hundreds of teachers coming into schools literally without the equipment for them to be tested, and for us to adequately ensure that these don't become centers upon which the virus can spread. Our country is littered with schools that don't even have basic sanitation, where our kids transport themselves to school in taxis packed like sardines. This is indeed a half-baked plan, a half measure, and as One South Africa, we simply cannot sit back and say, let us send at least over 1 million children back to school in this first round without the thorough preparation that the department has been able to do.
And what are you reading into this mixed message? I mean, you've got the unions saying that they're nowhere near ready, but yet the Minister of Basic Education saying we're ready for June the 1st. I mean, what sort of impact is it going to have on us going forward, other than, you know, targeting our children and teachers unnecessarily?
Yeah, it is very typical of this particular government, as we've all experienced through this COVID period. You almost have the presidency saying one thing, and then at the same time as all of that, you have other ministers saying something completely different. In this instance, in the tripartite alliance, which SATU is a part of, the Minister of Education is saying one thing, and the alliance partners are saying something completely different. And I think just on that basis alone tells me the risk that we are in fact putting our children in. And it's not just because it's my own voice only as a parent, but I've also launched an online petition where over now 30,000 South Africans have come back and said, we reject the idea of schools being open. So this mixed messaging, this misleadership, which is where it's most at crisis, will certainly put our kids at risk. And we're asking that the department must at least give itself 3 months, where in those 3 months they can ensure that schools are working well, that parents are brought on board because they need to be a plan for safety. We ensure that there's adequate testing for teachers and that classrooms are not crowded and infrastructure is properly built. This has to be the most responsible thing we can do to safeguard the constitutional provision that says that the rights of a child are paramount in this instance.
You've got to wonder who's calling the shots here. I mean, you've got the union saying that it's not ready, and you've got the minister saying we are. How do you think this is going to play out? What's happening there?
Well, worst of all, it's going to be a case where it tells you that this government cannot, in fact, coordinate itself. My greatest fear is that actually no one is in charge. Actually, that the minister can make all the pronouncement they like. The unions know very well that if needs be, they can pull their workforce out of schools. And it's very clear that as we've seen delay after delay from the Department of Basic Education, where last week they were scheduled to address parents about when the kids would go back. They then postponed that. They haven't been able to deliver basic PPEs. This is a department that can't meet its own deadlines. And so it's very clear that actually we can speak all we like. This department is far from ready, and it's putting our kids' lives at risk. And I don't believe anyone is genuinely in charge of this particular crisis. And we've known for a long time about the fact that schools will eventually have to reopen. What happened after the first lockdown was declared? Surely that was the first opportunity to get schools COVID ready, but they failed at that deadline and are now failing on another one.
I know you like to quote Churchill. He also said that if you have 10,000 regulations, you destroy all respect for the law. Is that what we are setting ourselves up with at the moment in the country?
I think as a nation, we've failed the basic exercise of giving a vision upon which all citizens can rally behind. You know, when I stand up, I say we want one South Africa. This was the best opportunity for us to be able to tell citizens, come together, let's all work together. Here are the 5 or 6 things we're going to do, not just the COVID interventions such as washing your hands, etc. But furthermore, are we going to move our kids? Are we going to move more kids into a digital platform? Are we going to ensure that education is more equitable for all citizens? Are we then going to focus on a future upon which all citizens can participate in our economy? Had we made those pronouncements, then all of us would sit back as citizens and say, well, the sacrifices are worth it because we are all paying the price for a future we all want. At this point in time, it's almost as though our leaders are having an intra-fight amongst themselves, the president at war with his own party, and inter-party competition, that it almost feels as though we want to go backwards as a nation to a country that was fundamentally abnormal, with the majority of schools being dysfunctional. Why don't we charter a future ahead, give ourselves the time in the next 2 months and say, we're going to get ready to build an education system that looks like this. And all sectors, private sector, communities, parents, teachers, school children, we're going to work together towards that. The lack of a plan and a lack of clarity will confuse the citizens and ultimately put us at a far greater risk of us mismanaging this very crisis that is before us.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us, Mmusi Maimane. Let's get sports news now with Jeffrey Stevens.